Checking in here, we are standing at 2221 South Broad Street in South Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You may be wondering why we're standing in front of this gigantic mural. You may also be wondering who is that man on that gigantic mural. And that is Richard Dick Allen, former Phillies legend. And this weekend, he is eligible yet again for baseball immortality, Sunday, December 8th.
16 voters will vote on 8 players from the Veterans Committee to get in baseball's Hall of Fame. They do this every 2 years, I believe, and this Sunday will happen again. They will need 75% of the vote to get in. They can vote as many players as they would like.
It's time for us to get one of America's unsung heroes into the Major League Hall of Fame.
All righty, we are back from Broad Street. Boys, what did you think of that mural?
I'll tell you what. How old is it? It's very nice. The paint looks nice and fresh. It pops. The Phillies red absolutely pops on the side of the wall. It's a beautiful mural. It
is really nice. Legitimately, really nice.
Yeah. No, it's up there with one of my favorites for sure. It's awesome.
Yeah, I never even knew it was there. It's freaking huge.
It's funny. Same. I mean, I've known about it for a year or so, but we've been talking about Dick Allen, who we're going to dive right into soon, for a lot recently. And then I drove by it the other day, and I said, we got to pay this a visit. But, boys, as you heard on our little mural visit earlier, we're speaking to 16 voters. 16 voters of the Classic Baseball Era Committee this Sunday, December 8th, decide the fate, yet again, of Richard Dick Allen. So what we're going to do today is very simple. We're going to tell you a little bit about Dick Allen. We're going to tell you why he's a Hall of Famer. And then we're going to tell you why he's a Hall of Famer again. So, guys, who is Dick Allen? So Dick Allen was a legend of the Philadelphia Phillies, right? So he started his career in 1964, went all the way to 1977. He played with a few other teams, most notably the White Sox. But Dick, for the Phillies, was primarily a third baseman and a first baseman. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of stats today, right? There's going to be a lot of stats thrown at you. But like any MLB baseball legend, there's always a great story. So we didn't have the privilege of watching Dick Allen play baseball, right? We're in our 30s. But I know someone that did, my grandfather. So I gave him a call and I interviewed him. And I'm going to take you guys on a little bit of a trek back to 1964 to Connie Mack Stadium. So like Slim Bones and myself, my grandfather grew up in the Kensington section of Philadelphia. And back in 1964, he remembers like it was yesterday, he jumped on the 54 bus, picked it up at right on Somerset around there, and he took that all the way to 21st and Lehigh, which was the old Connie Mack Stadium. He said back then it was about $5 got him and his older brother Joe 2 tickets in the bleachers, and this is his quote, not mine. They both got 2 large jawbreakers that would last them all 9 innings. So what my pop said, Dick Allen, obviously that was his rookie year, and he ultimately won Rookie of the Year that year. Dick Allen hit the ball harder than anyone he's ever seen in person. And you hear that a lot from scouts and a lot of the legends. And one of the things that he said about Dick was he hit the ball so hard that it often on in outfield singles to the outfield, primarily the right fielder, Dick had to beat it down the line because he hit the ball so hard. Luckily, Dick was a pretty fast runner because there's a lot of times where the right fielder, if they had a good arm, they had a good chance of getting him out at first. So I just kind of wanted to share a little story into the player that Dick was. for someone who saw him. There we go. There's Nitty, who saw him with their eyes at Connie Mack Stadium right there. And before I kick it over to my comrades here, I want to share a quote on someone who also saw Dick play, but played with him, in Hall of Fame pitcher Goose Gossage. And he very simply said, Dick Allen is the greatest player that I ever played with. Boys, I kind of set the table a little bit there. Slim, I'm looking at you. Why is Dick Allen a Hall of Famer?
The facts are Dick Allen's a Hall of Famer because his career OPS, right, is 156. If your OPS is 100, you're considered an average player. 156 means you're 56% better than the average MLB player. If you're 56% better than the average MLB player, you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. The other strong point for him is he hit for both power and average, and
Yes,
he
sir.
did this stuff in ballparks that were not hitters friendly in an era that included guys like Bob Gibson when it was a pitcher era. This is a time, I'm not sure the years, but if you go back around
Sandy Koufax.
around his rookie year is when they started messing around with the mounds because the pitchers were becoming so dominant. So he's absolutely Hall of Famer. If he played elsewhere, if he played in today's era, he's easily a 400 home run guy instead of a 351 home run guy.
But he did offer that defensive versatility where he was able to play a little bit, all over the field. Great points there. Bones, let's add to that a little bit.
So they said he was built like a Mickey Mantle type thing, and Jimmy Fox, who Philadelphia knows from the Athletics.
Yes, sir. Hall of Famer.
And like your pop said, Willie Mays said he hit the ball harder than anybody's ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And like Chris said, it was the dead ball era. So like in '64, he came up and he was the rookie of the year. He was on that. That was like one of the most famous teams ever, or you would say infamous, because of the 7-game lead they blew with 7 games to go against the Mets. But he was on that team with Hall of Famer Jim Bunning. There's a couple other guys on the team, but Jim Bunning or Dick Allen, he's the only guy in Phillies history to have his number retired, and he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Wow!
Like he put up these crazy numbers. He only played like an average 116 games a year, and he was putting up these numbers then. So he was bigger, but a little more fragile than most. But there's players out there today like Mike Trout that we hear like, oh, he's a future Hall of Famer. His numbers compare around the same with Mike Trout.
They do, and like all players, Dick evolved in a lot of different ways throughout his career, right? And actually, namely, one of the biggest things when he started his career, when I brought it up to my pop, I keep referencing that, Richie is what he went by. So he started his career as Richie Allen, and then he thought he grew out of that. There's somewhat, it's up in the air as exactly when he transitioned to wanting to go by Dick, but as he got older during the White Sox years where, he won MVP 1972 with the White Sox. Right, not the perfect player, not the perfect man. No one is. But the biggest criticisms of Dick Allen at that time, he was a drinker. He wasn't the most punctual player. He loved his horses, right? All these things that really embodied his personality, but he wasn't necessarily bought in as much as everybody else. And look, I'm going to speculate here. Maybe he just had so much natural talent that he knew he didn't have to be as bought in as everybody else. So I could understand why maybe coaches and teammates didn't love that. His teammates rave about him. I think it's more from a coach standpoint. But we also have to think about it from a cultural standpoint, right? At that time, 1960s, civil rights era. Yes, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier about 10 years prior, but America still wasn't quite there, right? Dick still had to sleep in different hotels coming up in the minors, so he came through that segregated baseball world. So there was a lot of racial tensions between Dick and the media, Dick and the fans. So there's tons of stories you'll hear about that, him wearing a batting helmet at third base because he was getting batteries thrown at him. So a lot of crazy stories back then that kind of helps explain maybe why he had the off the field issues. Again, we're playing the speculation game. We weren't there. Guys, anything else on that or anything else you want to hammer hit on now?
No, I would just, again, the two best ways I would try to define the cultural aspect is he's the next generation after Jackie Robinson, those original pioneers, and then being in Philadelphia in 1964, 1963, you are still talking about redlining, segregated areas, super duper racism. So he would have been experiencing, the stuff that you would read about. Would that affect your personality? Absolutely. It had to get it. I could only imagine. With that being said, him being misunderstood, I have a few. I'm going to say these real quick, but from going by his quotes, it seems like someone I would agree with. When it says to his experiences with racism, quote, "You can't sit back and let somebody define you. You have to stand up and be counted." So he wasn't going to be someone who just sat there and let reporters write who knows what, especially back then. On playing the game, I didn't play for the accolades. I played to win, and that's what I did. Right? His chase rate. I would love. Can we look that up? Can we look up his chase rate? Because I'll tell you what, it would be 99% today if he was playing on. And on his reflecting on his career, baseball is a game of failure. How you deal with that failure makes you a success. Yeah, and there's a couple more things, but he just seems like somebody who kind of got it and was living in a very turmoil time. If you're a young buck, you can only imagine.
100%.
Yeah, so like everything like that is like said about him, like for his case not to get him in there, like it's mainly just like writers, and because there's different people, his managers, Gene Malk and Chuck Tanner of the White Sox after he left Philly, like they said he was same thing that Willie Stargell said. He was like a great teammate. Like he didn't divide the chemistry in the clubhouse. So he was always so whatever they said about that was BS. And then Orlando Cepeda, same thing. Like you said, Goose Gossage, great player, one of the greatest he's seen. But his character amongst his his teammates and these two managers speaks volumes of what he was. So whatever's being made out by or was being made out by the reporters back then, I don't know how much we can go off of that.
Right, because a lot of people say he didn't play nice with the reporters, right? So because of that, was that held against him? The other thing that we have to hammer home, right? A lot of modern stats that are honestly like critical in determining a player's value, like OPS plus, they weren't valued back then, right? When he was going through most of the initial phases of getting considered for the Hall of Fame. So when you when you look at him through the lens of today's stats and how we value the game, let's take a look at the OPS plus from 1964 through 1974, like an 11-year stretch. Dick Allen was number one in the major leagues, above William McCovey, Hank Aaron, Frank Robinson, Willie Stargell, Roberto Clemente, Herman Killebrew. Slim mentioned him earlier. So these are all Hall of Famers. Carl Yastrzemski. And this isn't a 3-year stretch. This is an 11-year stretch. And this isn't some, made-up stat. This is OPS plus. You know what I mean? So that's a Hall of Fame player. That's a player that if they were all at the schoolyard during that time, Dick Allen's going to be a top pick, right? He's the one that's going to be put on a team. And that's the way you have to look at this stuff. And from my standpoint, and Slim, I know you want to jump in there. Go ahead. Jump on in.
So no, you're right because it's his entire. He's the player's player. He's the one that's going to bring the uniqueness from his batting, from everything about him, from his batting stance. When he was younger, his arm. He's the guy they would have picked first, like you said. If there was a draft, he definitely would have went up to the top. The other names, I didn't realize those other names he was above. I did not realize he had that 11-year stretch. That's phenomenal. Yeah, I'm just it's the one thing I want to say besides his uniqueness with his batting approach is he played in a time where interleague wasn't a thing, right? And
Right.
he was with the Phillies for 9 years, and then what did he do? He went over to the AL and then won the MVP. So this would
Right.
have been a time where we're not going to. First off, we're never going to see that again. We're not going to see a player where it's like, oh, is he the real deal? Is he the real deal? Because they weren't playing each other. And then to find out, well, he went there and he immediately became the most valuable player there. So I think that speaks volumes as well. It's something, again, we're not going to experience. And it's we were talking about national TV deals yesterday for a quick bit. You weren't seeing these guys. So when you went to the field, it was like, oh my, he's picking his leg up and swinging, and the way he's rounding the bases, and the way he's hitting the ball to all different parks, and the way he's sliding home, et cetera, et cetera. And then to hear the stories and then go to the next league, do it again. It's someone I truly wish I got to see play, and I don't really say that about anyone else. I kind of can figure out what they look like.
Yeah, you said that was like an 11-year stretch, and so it's like look at Ryan Howard. He only had like a 5-6 year stretch where he really dominated the game. Imagine if he had 11 years, like the numbers he would put up.
And then the second part is when it came to the Hall of Fame voting, so much of it is regional. So you had these dudes who are like, oh, I'm going to be arguing for my guy. And now if you had these Northeast guys, they're arguing for other probably Caucasian players before Dick Allen comes in that batting order. To where if it was reverse, if the players were getting the vote, Allen probably first ballot instead of whatever this is. We have to go back and fix history. And it's going to be a shame if he doesn't get in.
It's going to be a shame. 2 times before he fell shy, like I said, the Classic Era Baseball Committee, the Classic Baseball Era Committee, 16 voters, we need 12, 75%. And 2 times before, Dick fell 1 shy. And again, this Sunday, let's try to get that 12. Guys, anything else? Again, we're speaking directly to you, Classic Baseball Era Committee. Make it right. We need to stop focusing on the counting stats. Back in the day where everything's about the 500 home run threshold, the 300 win threshold for the pitcher. We need to start reframing how we look at the game and who was the best player in an entire era, and that is Dick Allen.
To the baseball committee, I don't know your names, and I don't want to know your names. Okay, don't make me have to find out your names. Okay, because there will be ask the subscribers.
Some
there
tweeting,
will be email. There will be emails.
Yeah. All right, boys. I think we made our case for why Dick Allen will be in the Hall of Fame. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy.
Good luck, Dick.